I hear that you want to live a long life. Hi, Colin. Evanoff.
Evanoff?
Anne Evanoff.
Anne Evanoff. So I'm here with Anne Evanoff today. And you're an actor
I am.
as well as...
What I do outside of acting?
Well, I saw I shouldn't say outside of acting, but you also do commercial work.
I
So,
do commercials, film,
theater.
TV, live theater.
Okay. Well, how is it when you actually step on stage as in the live theater sense? How much does a theater hold usually?
Well, it depends on the theater, of course. There's the Black Box in Florida where I go for the winter.
Yeah.
It holds 99 people.
Right?
And when I did Trouble in the Bubble this winter in Florida, it was 600 people a night. So it just varies.
How do you...
It depends.
What is that like, standing in front of that many people?
Well, it's the fourth wall, right?
Is
You
there?
don't. It's the fourth wall, and after a while, you don't even know it's there. I don't hear, see.
Really?
I'm not aware that they're there. I'm just living out this character on the stage.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. Wow.
Kind of cultivate that focus in the moment, because in the past, as I was really honing my craft.
Yeah.
If I looked out at the audience or if I acknowledged the laughter, I would lose my focus. And it's like, okay, everyone else now has to rescue me.
Hopefully.
The line is gone. Don't do that anymore, though, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I really work at staying very much in the moment, in the character,
That's pretty
and
cool.
present as that personality.
Yeah, I was listening to Jerry Seinfeld. He was talking about the comedy. He's like, you have to stay in the bit. He's like, when they start clapping and staring, he's like, you have to stay in whatever you're in. If you're in anger, you have to be angry still.
Yeah, you do.
Or else...
I've been taking a 7-week course from Al Fatz at Second City. Do you know Al?
No.
He's, I'd say the king of improv.
Really?
And it's a 7-week course on improv.
Okay.
And that's great for actors. It's great for everybody.
Yeah.
How to learn to be present in the moment and to get out of your head. That's a big thing for actors is to... That's why they call them headshots.
Is that why?
Yep.
So how long have you been acting, actually?
Probably since I was 10,
Really?
12, live theater, community theater.
So we're going on, 10 years now you've been acting?
Such a darling. I acted for about 7 years straight growing up.
Yeah?
Till I was about 18 or 19.
Okay.
And when I told my parents that I was headed to Broadway or Hollywood, they said, no, you weren't, Anne, you're going to school. So I headed for Toronto Teachers College and the University of Toronto, and I got sidetracked for a number of decades. And then I retired early and came back to really honing my craft as a film and TV commercial actor. But I still, feed the bug through live theater. That is, for sure. I don't really want to give that up. It's a joy to be engaged that way.
So through those decades where you're sidetracked, were you still doing the theater, little bits?
A little bits and pieces here and there, but I found as an educator that all of that love I had for using language, I was able to bring it into the classroom.
Okay.
And one of the ways I put it to work was in doing a thing that Frank Smith called hooking kids on books. And so I worked with boys, mainly boys, who people would say, oh, he's never going to learn how to read or write. We'll send him to Anne for 45 minutes while we do reading and writing. And actually, that's not true. No. Everybody can learn to read and write.
Yeah.
If you use an approach that isn't too cerebral, that really tugs at the heart. So I would use poetry to welcome them, as they came into my little classroom.
Yeah.
You know, Robert Frost. I love Robert Frost. So they'd walk in and I'd start reciting a poem. And at first they'd look at me as if, oh, she is so crazy.
Yeah.
Other times, as they walked in, I'd just be sitting on a stool at the front of the classroom and reading from Old Yeller, you know?
Yeah.
And not saying a word about settle down, be quiet, sit in your chair, don't move. Just read. So I was able to use that, my ability to bring a story to life, which of course is an ability I probably was born with.
Okay.
They became very entranced by the sound of language,
Yeah.
the storyline, the characters, identifying with which character do you identify with? How does that make you feel? Why do you feel that way, do you think? Have you had any other experiences like that? This is just a conversation. I'm not asking them to write answers to 5 comprehension questions now, am I?
Yeah, yeah.
We don't start there. Wrong place.
Yeah, you started out like a drama class almost, it sounds like.
Like a drama class, yes. And, you know, even on the wall of my classroom, I had a sign, beautiful letters, of course, nicely cut out, giant, tune your ear to the music of language.
Yeah.
Because language is music. And so eventually we get into the creative process with kids. And then there's this desire to want to read, to want to write. And there was a book I used to use a lot to get them started in the writing process called The Olden Days Coat, written by an Ontario author. Her name is Margaret Lawrence. God bless her. She's passed on now, excuse me. But one of the techniques that I would use is I'd stop reading at some key point in the book.
Yeah.
And then ask them, okay, I want you to write your version of what happens next and how this story ends. And there were 12 people in that class, boys mainly, 2 girls, 10 boys.
Yeah.
And they wrote, I told them that, you know, that they were so good when I read the first drafts that I was compelled to send them to Margaret Lawrence.
Wow.
And they worked their butts off, polishing those stories,
Yeah, of course.
getting their stories ready. They were so motivated.
Of course.
No one would have believed how motivated they were. And I shipped them off to Margaret Lawrence with a cover letter of my own. And she wrote those 12 students a letter back and said to them that any one of them could have had their ending published in her book.
Yeah.
That's how good they were. And she said, really, you're in the process now.
Yeah.
That is what it's all about. There is no one ending. There can be very many endings to this story. I still have that letter from her, by the way. I kept it, and I photocopied a copy of it for all the kids.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they took it out at recess and waved it to everybody. Said, oh, we have a letter from Margaret Lawrence. And the principal came to me after recess and said, what's going on in this classroom?
Yeah.
I said, oh, we're doing great things.
That's pretty amazing. Sounds like you retired a little early there.
Well, I went on to do other things.
Yeah.
I worked for the Ministry of Ed. I became a curriculum developer, all
Really?
kinds of other stuff like that,
Wow.
which, again, you bring that creative process in a different format to work for you. And for me, like we were talking earlier, the creative process is a mysterious thing.
Yeah.
I cannot really define it for you. And I'm sure that if I try to describe it for you, it'll be very different from anybody else who tries to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And often, depending on what the scenario is, what I think I'm bringing to that creative process changes as I get into it.
Yeah.
Like it suddenly takes a whole different direction that I didn't even anticipate.
Right.
And when that happens, it really juices me. Because then I'm really into it. Like I'm thinking, something's being born here. Something's being created that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when I know the creative process is really working for me at its best, at its height.
Yeah.
And that's why I retired early. and got back into acting because I experienced those kinds of things as an adolescent.
Yeah, those bursts of...
Yeah, and I remember what it felt like. Those...
Does that whole process begin, I guess, from getting the role?
Well, it begins before that, actually, when you do the audition.
Okay.
And you look at the sides that if this is what you're trying to get at through this conversation. I look at the sides, and then I try to decide, what period in history is this script from?
Okay.
What decade?
Okay.
What time in history? And so I'll do a little bit of this Stanislavski thing where I identify the period in history, what were some of the commonly held beliefs, how would they have affected this person given the little bit of script I have.
Yeah.
And so try to get a feel for that. I don't do that all the time. It's only when it's really necessary in a period that I'm not all that familiar with.
Okay.
So I'll do that, and I'll draw some pictures about diagrams about what this story is about.
Actual diagrams?
Pictures, little wee cartoons, stick figures.
And you're are you...
I'm trying to figure out the story.
Really?
Yeah, I do it in pictures. I'm visual. Right. But I'm also auditory.
So you're almost like like in animation, I have friends they have to do storyboards.
In a way, but it's not as good as animation. It's just, stick figures.
That's how my storyboards are.
Yeah, okay.
Those are fun.
So then you know what I'm talking about. So I do little stick figures, and so I begin to think about the character, what's occurring in here, draw little pictures of it. Then I go to memorizing and rehearsing the lines. And I do that. It's very tedious and boring sometimes, and I try them different ways, the lines. I record them, and I don't look in the mirror the first few times. I don't. But I will record it using my iPad.
Okay.
Once I get into the character.
And when you record it, what are you listening for when you listen back?
Does it sound like language? Would somebody actually talk this way?
Okay.
Is my voice going up when it should go down? Is it subtle? Is it too... Because I have a background in the theater, some people automatically assume I'm too theatrical.
Okay.
That's a bunch of baloney. Because you can tone that down very easily and make it very subtle. And not a lot of eye movement. Less is more kind of thing. Sure. So I look for those kinds of things. Is that creative? It's part of the creative process because knowledge is power, so to speak, in creating the character.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And so I do all that, and then I go to the audition prepared, if I have the sides in advance. If not, then it's a quick study while I'm there. Sit down, they say, okay, you've got the role, and we begin.
When you say the sides, what are the sides?
It's the script that they send you.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to audition. If you do a self-tape, they'll send you the maybe 3 or 4 or 5 pages of the script for you to prepare.
Okay, and that's just called the sides?
It's called the sides. Those are called sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get up. Okay.
Yeah, it's just lingo.
That's what we say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And so sometimes they don't provide them for you in advance. You go, you do it, and you do the best you can while you're sitting waiting for your turn to think about who that character is. I look at the lines. I try to think about a time when I found myself in a very similar situation. I try and go there and recollect it in my emotional memory, in my physical memory, in my gut. So I would describe myself not as a Meisner or a Stanislavski or an Uta Hagen, although I'm familiar with all of those ways of being as an actor, and I do call on some aspects and dimensions of that.
Okay.
In truth, I am an instinctual actor. Okay. I rely on my experience, my life experience, how I can go to a place of how I might react, respond, having lived a similar situation. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I thought that's what type of actor I would be.
Yeah.
I'd want to go towards
I think a lot of people are that way personally, whether they're aware of it or not. But when I forget that it's Anne Evanoff that's doing this, and I'm, say, Dolores or Marie or whoever the character is, Carol, I'm just present for her.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who else is in the room. I am reacting from the point of view, or the emotional reaction is the reaction of that character.
So
not me, not Anne Evanoff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so it's not you when you do that. You make it all the character. You like you step out of it.
Yeah, there's the actor, and then there's the character. When I fully commit to the character, and that's what it is a commitment. Mm-hmm. Then that's who I become.
Okay, and then you stay within that.
Yeah. Can I give you a little story from high school?
Of course.
There was this young man I grew up with named Philip Kreiner.
Okay.
His sister was Kathy Kreiner. She was a downhill Canadian Olympic skier, gold medal. He was very proud of his sister.
Should be.
Philip wrote a little blurb for my acting bio.
Yeah.
Of what he recalled when he saw me on stage, and when growing up, and he wrote in there that he was always amazed that this girl he sat beside in class, who was quiet, studious, would get on stage and become somebody entirely different, someone he didn't recognize or know, that he thought that was rather terrifying at times.
Yeah.
To see that person there in class, the Anne I know, become that character.
Yeah.
And be so fully committed. And I think partly, I don't want you to think I was well trained as a young actor. I learned the craft through experience like anybody else.
Okay.
And I think I was born with that ability.
To
act.
Oh, really?
I think that was a gift that I was given, free of charge.
Well, it's not free of charge, because then you got to feed the bug, right?
Well, that's the deal.
Yeah.
Right,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, it's the deal.
We signed that deal. Yeah.
Right. So even back then, I didn't know how I did that, but people noticed that something was different when I was on stage than I was as the person Anne.
Yeah, regular Anne. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Now I'm more Anne the actor than Anne the student or Anne the teacher or whatever.
Yeah.
That is sort of the life I'm living out right now.
Yeah.
I live it, I breathe it, I do whatever with it.
Of course.
I'm totally committed. And so I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, it's just it's almost obsessive in a way.
Which is good. Which is very good. I think for anything, obsession is great.
There are definitely some positive aspects to that when you've fully committed to doing that. Yes. And there are lucky for me, no really other commitments in my life.
That's a very good part of it.
So it gives me the freedom to, if I want to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning learning my lines, I have that freedom. There are so many different aspects of the business that I'm really just becoming familiar with.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like, my focus has really been on filling the shoes of the character.
Of course.
But I don't have an agent.
Okay.
I'm non-union. And there's this other side of the business, a structure that's in place that I had no input into, where that structure has never really been a part of my life because I was diverted.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand how the business operates. And so, one of the things I've learned is that there's certain people you never approach directly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That's a no-no. You never do that because there's a hierarchy
that
built
makes
in.
sense.
Like I don't know. I didn't know that.
Ah.
And so, I've made some mistakes along the way.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You make mistakes all the time.
That's
You know
part
what?
of it.
Yeah, it is. My definition of a mistake is an opportunity to do it over with more knowledge.
Right? That's exactly what this is. A couple of these interviews I messed up pretty bad, but but we're doing good now. Yeah, right? Yeah, I don't want to jinx it. I'll find some wood. There you go.
Yeah, so there's different levels to being an actor.
Yeah.
And I have found that interesting, how to work with the system that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to judge that system as yay or nay.
Yeah, of course.
It's what exists.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how to work within the context of that as well as I'd like to.
Yeah.
And not bug someone to death about, how do you do this? How do you do this?
Yeah.
But there is that learning. You've got all that learning going on, and you're trying to get auditions that will feed the bug.
Yeah.
And be part of projects that are more complicated than, say, just doing a commercial. Nothing wrong with that, because commercials are a lot of fun. But sometimes I'd like something more challenging to work with.
You want like a longer role.
Yeah.
Something that you have to think about more and
Yeah.
really set the shoes in, like you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, unless you have an agent, it's very hard to gain access to that, because when you go to Actors Access or Casting Workbook, what you're seeing there really are all of those roles that the agencies couldn't fill.
In a sense, yeah, right?
In a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has to make their contribution to the big picture, the big project, right?
Of course.
But my question is, for me, how do I, without an agent, non-union, get an audition for, say, a small TV role that would be ongoing?
I have no idea.
No, I don't have an answer.
I'd like to know, because I'd like to get into that. That'd be great.
It's the Non-Union Union Association, but we won't go there.
Yeah. Like I was talking to a comedian actor, I guess, commercial actor more so, and yeah, he was like, as soon as he got an agent, that's when things like picked up more so for him. Like he was able to get that meeting, and it from there it just like really stepped up. But he was like, you can't just depend on that agent like at all. He's like, you gotta make your other stuff. I think he was saying that right now, I guess someone like you and him would be at that place where you've seen how it was, and like now you see how it is. Like somebody can just be on YouTube and like start getting a real following and like actually amass some kind of stuff. And like he's just like, he was saying like how you have to concentrate on both. He's like, that's all he can really do. He's like, you gotta get that agent and live that life. He's like, but you also have to like step into like the digital new stuff that's going on.
The branding.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he was talking about.
Definitely. There's so many different dimensions. Branding was not something that was even talked about 15 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Maybe even 10 years ago.
Like the term even.
Yes, the term.
Especially to use it towards an actor and
Yes.
be like, work on your personal branding.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
avatar, I don't know if you saw my avatar online.
Yeah.
That is part of that whole process.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, why are you doing that now? It's way too early. And I say, well, when would be the best time?
Yeah, you might as well test.
Yeah, might as well test, work with, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's creative. It feeds the bug too.
Yes. Anything creative will
Yes.
satiate a bit.
And I'm, I feel I'm branding myself with my initials, the ACE, with my experiences in acting as Anne and Cleopatra was the first major role that I had
Oh, really?
on the stage. Yeah,
As
I did.
Cleopatra?
Cleopatra.
Wow. How was that?
Well, I'm a redhead. I have freckles, and my eyes are green.
Yeah, right?
So the makeup department did a great job of making me look Macedonian.
Yeah.
Black hair. They worked on the eyes. And again, I have a little blurb in my acting bio from one of my friends from childhood who saw me play this role when I was 15 or 16, I think.
Yeah.
And she said, you'd never believe that Anne with freckles and green hair, yes, she could play Anne Shirley in Anne of Green Gables,
Yeah.
but Cleopatra, yes, Anne pulled it off.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so I'm using all of that history to create my brand. So the brand is not a superficial little thing.
Yes.
It actually reflects bits and pieces and parts of different times I've lived in.
Yeah.
And things that have been a part of my past life, so to speak.
Yes.
So it really is me.
Yeah.
But the branding is me. It's not something that's been created out there, okay, now you're this.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to market you. That's not how my branding is occurring. My branding is happening from the inside out, not the reverse, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and that's how it should go, because it should be very personal. So it's like people want to feel like when it comes to businesses, they want to feel like they're communicating with like a person, an individual, I should say. And with actors, I mean, you already are an individual, so it's like it's an easier step for actors like that. But it's also a different step, and it doesn't really speak to the whole like not having an agent and everything. But it's like it's just a different avenue completely.
It is, that's for sure. And I don't think some of the acting jobs that I have been able to get have been related necessarily yet to that branding.
No?
I don't think so. I think it's partly being in the right place, the right time, by word of mouth, networking, working on one project, someone saying, you should ask Anne, she's easy to work with. Yeah. And that's how I've gotten a lot of these jobs, actually, is one director to another, or, other actors on set.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask how important that is.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Being on set and being easy to work with, making things easy, being prepared, cooperative, supportive of others is so important. I can't tell you how important that is. It's not about you. It's about a team of people trying to create some truth.
Yeah.
On the screen.
Trying to create a reality, like you were saying.
Create that reality, exactly. And it doesn't depend on just me. Yeah, though I have to do my part and do it well.
That's what I was going to say.
But it's teamwork, and sometimes the creative process really jives when you're engaging. It's that dynamic between you and other actors, or the director saying, wait a minute, that's not the direction I want this to go in. Let's think about how else we could do this, and they'll give you some notes, and you begin to think about, okay, so you want me to be less assertive, more enabling, let's say, of this person, as opposed to having that challenging tone of voice. Let's just subdue it and try and go along, make it sound like I'm going along with an enabling character.
Yeah.
Okay, let's use that as an example.
Okay.
That will change the creative process, so I have to go somewhere else, rework it, and come back all in 5 minutes or less and go to that place. So there's some things that happen instantly almost where you are reworking it. I don't know how that's described. I don't know if anyone really talks about that.
I don't know either, but you kind of touched on it. I mean, this is going back to you being so instinctual, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's where every actor would have to call on their instinctual stuff, like given like 3 minutes to like switch it up like that.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't often talk about each other's process when we're on set.
Yeah, you're just caught up in it, I would assume. Because I've never been on set before. I was actually going to ask, what is that like when you're on set? It sounds, everything you just said, it's a very team-oriented environment. And
Usually.
It should be,
Usually it is, yeah.
Should be very supportive and everything.
Yeah, for the most part, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I've been on maybe 1 or 2 sets that had a lot of obstacles and challenges.
Yeah.
People really had to work to overcome them. And that made the team probably even more cohesive because...
Bigger bond. stronger point.
Yeah. What's it like on set? Is that the question?
Yeah. What is that? You know what? Can I even ask you even more in depth? When a director directs you, what do they actually tell you? Because like my end thing, I want to actually direct films, music videos, and stuff like that. And how do they actually go about directing you? Because like I wouldn't know how to actually do that for someone. You have to really, I guess, know what you want from somebody. Like,
Well, you have the script. You start with the script.
yeah,
The director, I think, more than anybody else, understands the spine of that story.
yeah,
What it is that makes that story something worth pursuing. It has a spine, some key structure
okay,
where everything revolves around that plot,
okay,
that conflict, that challenge, that obstacle, wherever the tension is in the story.
okay,
And so the director, usually has a better sense of that
yeah.
than anybody else,
So that's
because as an actor, I'm really focused on my role, my part, and everybody else is doing the same thing with their roles and their parts.
okay.
So the director has the bigger vision of how does this play out frame by frame
Yeah.
in the film to paste it all together, right, in the editing room when
yes.
we're long gone,
Yeah.
and have it make sense, make it sound like a true story, make it sound real, like it really happened, and they captured that reality on
Yeah. So
digital.
yeah, I like that you use the term spine. So it's almost like you guys are all. It's almost like one body, you could
Yeah.
say,
Definitely, yeah,
and the spine kind of connects to everything. Ah, wow.
yeah.
So that's a pretty big role.
That's my idea of the director's role.
Yeah. So
And the director, sometimes you can, depending on how well and how comfortable you feel with that person, is sometimes the collaboration, they invite the collaboration, that they don't just say, do this, not that.
okay.
And if you feel you know the person well enough, you can say, but I was thinking that I should respond more this way because what I'm picking up from the other character is, and so you can kind of massage that a bit
Okay.
and sometimes they say, yeah. And yeah, I like that. Or sometimes they say, let's try it both ways
And just see, right?
and see what works. And they'll capture both.
Huh.
So there's no one.
But basically, a good director wouldn't stifle whatever creative vision you have for the character. They would first invite that, and then, like, if it's just a mess, then be like,
Well, often it is a mess. It is. It's one big mess that you got to find your way through. I can't argue with it's not a mess, it's a mess. And if you have good working relationships with people, and then that you want to cultivate, at least I've really found the production crews I've worked with amazing.
yeah,
Because they are so creative themselves in the work they do. I mean, I really respect that, admire it, and feel delighted to be a part of a production because of it, because of the people that you engage with.
yeah,
And yes, sometimes you do work through a mess to come up with something that really works. And sometimes I just concede to the director. If he says, no, Anne, I don't want to do it that way. This is this is my intention. This is how I want to work with it.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem with that either. I'm going to give him what he wants. I'm there to give him what he or she wants me to give them. But if I know them well enough and feel comfortable enough, that's when I might say, well, I was thinking this, or I was feeling that, or what do you think of this?
yeah.
And that collaboration happens. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. No, it's great to hear an actor's perspective from what like they think a director should be like. So then, yeah, so they should be like pretty inviting to your ideas.
But also know the spine well enough
to not let you just take
I'm
over.
not running this show.
Yeah.
It's not my movie. I'm one part of the team that's helping that director create the spine.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of answered the question, but like just to go back to it, you kind of and you don't have a problem with that. Like if he's just like, no, like it has to be like this. It's like
Absolutely not.
Is that regular with actors though, or is some of them like?
Tell me more, please.
Oh, like explain, like are some actors like annoyed with that?
Some are.
It goes person to person, right? I guess
It is. It's individual. Yes.
Okay.
Right. Some are.
Yeah.
And then, the issue becomes how strongly do you feel about that? And maybe that's when you might want to have a private conversation with the director and state your case rather than creating a big scenario right on set in front of everybody. That's just a waste of time from my perspective. Other people might disagree with me.
Yeah, of course.
But from my perspective, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, I would think
so. That's not the place to exert your...
Yeah. Fun to watch, though, I'm sure, from afar.
Yes, sir. It's comedy hour.
So when it comes to acting, like who are some of your influences in terms of actors?
Actors that I have admired?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I have to go back to Casablanca.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, Catherine, what's her name?
I'm not sure. I've only seen Casablanca once.
Yes, I've seen it many times.
I should see it.
The memory is failing me, but Casablanca, those actors certainly influenced me. Modern day ones, probably Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep.
Of course.
I really, some of them have never had acting lessons. I think it's Helen Mirren who said that she never had a formal acting lesson.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Streep has.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by that she's had very little training, and yet...
is able.
She is such a fantastic actor that she just is there, and she's real, and she lives her truth as that character. I really admire both those women.
Yeah.
So I look to them, from way back when. The Casablanca team, probably.
Yeah. What about that? Because the Casablanca is like a very, for anybody who's like into film, that's like a certain time period.
Yeah.
Is it the time period that builds that kind of admiration or nostalgia, or is it like actually the actors and like how they did things back then?
Well, I think Katharine Hepburn.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah.
How did I forget that?
Why
name?
that movie appeals to me? I love the setting. I love the time. And it represents a period in time where we almost romanticized everything in a way.
Yeah, that was big in that movie.
Yeah, it was.
Everything was very romantic.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it wasn't.
And even if it wasn't, yes. Mm-hmm. So, I think it represents a period in the history of filmmaking that is classic.
Yeah.
People don't make those kinds of movies anymore. They were epics in a way. It's like...
Yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to think of another movie in that category.
I don't know of any in that time period, in that category. That's that classic. But from there, like, is there anybody else at all? Just those people? Or, I should ask actually, do you draw any inspiration from like the new people? And when I say the new people, not like the new A-list people, but like the people who are, I guess you could say your peers. Do you draw any inspiration from what you're seeing right
locally?
now? Yeah.
When I work with other actors? Oh, I sure do.
Yeah.
Yes, I see a lot of talented actors there who are so good at the subtleties. I really admire that because I'm really trying to hone that same kind of subtlety
Okay.
when they're acting and they make it so real. It's like you could breathe the pain. It's so there if it's one of those scenes, if you know what I mean.
Almost.
There are local people that are totally amazing actors. I admire them.
That's pretty cool.
So much, especially when I did the movie thing with Molly's Love Story. And I saw the people on set with me. I was really awed by the talent that had come together, and some of it in an informal way. It wasn't all that formal. That it's amazing what actors can do and how they feed off one another to create that special energy in a movie.
Yeah, they feed off each other. So is there some of that? I guess there is some of that in the creative process of while you're not just preparing for a role, but like actually in the role, making that reality like you talk about.
Yeah, and I never stop learning from other actors. I don't think I will ever stop learning.
Yeah, that would make sense. I was going to ask, like, do you see any similarities between, like, who you are inspired by in terms of the Casablanca era and then, like, the local talent? Like, yeah. Do you see any similarities there? I was going to talk about the subtleties, but Casablanca wasn't super subtle.
No, it wasn't.
No, that's why I didn't want to try and make that connection.
No. That's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
Because I can't really get into the head of another actor, and we wouldn't, because we don't act from our heads anyway. Sometimes the head or the mind interferes with it when we think the role too much. So the thing for me that I go to is get out of your head, Anne, and get into your body and feel that role, as opposed to working it out in my head. And sometimes it's allowing myself the freedom to react in a real life way without letting my head say, okay, maybe I should say this, or maybe I should do this, or maybe maybe that. It's just allowing that to unfold. And when I see my peers or other actors engaged in a similar process, whatever that is, for another actor, that's very exciting. You know, they're not in their heads, I'm not in my heads, and it really is us feeding off one another and responding, not acting. There's a difference between acting and reacting and responding. I don't act when I'm in that space. If I'm acting, you can tell.
So then you're reacting?
I'm reacting and responding with truth.
As the character that you
As the character.
Developed.
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
Huh.
I can act it for you, and you'll know I'm acting. It's like when you watch a movie on television that isn't well done.
Yeah.
What do you say? These guys are acting.
Yeah. You know what people don't even say? They say bad acting right away. They're like, that's bad acting.
Because they're acting.
Yeah.
They're not coming from that place in themselves that speaks truth. When you speak truth in that character, you are touching the audience in some way. You are opening up some windows for the audience that haven't been touched before.
Yeah.
And then that's when you know that you're credible, where you have touched someone's heart through having played that role as that real character.
Yeah.
That you know you're successful when somehow you've touched the audience, changed the audience, or have done something to the audience that totally sucks them in to what's going on in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. And it makes sense for me in like a different way. Cause like as I'm doing this, like I kind of like try and always apply whatever I hear to that. And that's like, that's a big part of it. The audience and what they take away. And if you can actually make them think and touch them that way.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to go there with me, but when that happens, you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sense it.
I guess so.
There is an energy.
I've never had it. I've never done anything to have that happen before.
Well, that's why actors keep coming back for more.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is the juice. That is the electricity, the energy.
Yeah.
And, it's hard for me to tell you about what other actors do.
Of course.
Because I don't really know.
Yeah, no.
All I know is that whatever each of us does, it can create something very special if we're present to it.
Yeah.
That touches the people who are witnessing it, because then they're not questioning whether or not this is truth.
Yeah.
That's not the question. The question is, oh my God, look what's happening.
True. Yeah, I get that. I've never been able to grasp all these things. Like growing up, like when you were saying with the bad television and stuff like that, I've never been able to catch it. And it's only as I start like talking about these things and like looking at things artistically, they start seeing it more and more. It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
Neat. Yeah.
Rad. Da Vinci.
Da Vinci. That's pretty good. That's a new one. That could fly in the hip hop world.
Oh, it's the young people in the business expanding my vocabulary.
Oh, is that one of them?
That's one of them, Da Vinci.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Rad.
I like that.
Rab.
That's Da Vinci. I like that. I'm gonna use that. So, recently, what have you been doing in terms of like acting, commercial, like anything? Like, what have you been up to recently?
Oh, very recently, I did a commercial about weed, which I can't really talk about too much.
Really?
No, not yet. It has to be released first.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So we're waiting for the law to change about recreational marijuana.
Yes.
So this company has prepared a commercial in advance for that release.
Really?
And we're kind of hoping that it'll become a serial commercial, like, the guy from Trivago. Because this is really going to change our society to some degree in terms of a recreational.
Yeah. It won't only change just like when it comes out, but it'll change the thought process towards like other things that could be beneficial.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's an open mind is good.
Yes, and we could get into that debate about how marijuana was viewed when I was growing up, and
how was it viewed when you were growing up?
Oh, a lot of baloney about you do that, you'll die.
You'll die?
You'll die.
Oh, yeah.
Bad for you. It's called brain mush.
Wow, really?
Right, and now they're figuring out that this could be actually good for you.
Yeah.
And, cure some diseases to some degree as well.
Yeah.
And that, with supervision and moderation, and I'm not talking about, smoke a joint and go drive your car. Of course, that's terrible, and you would never want to do that.
Yeah.
But, look at alcohol and the role it has played.
Of course.
It's very hard to prove that alcohol could be good for Parkinson's disease. Wink, wink. So we shouldn't even be putting marijuana, was thought. I'd like to get back, though, to another part of this question that you asked earlier, if I could.
What's that?
I'm trying to remember what it was. How did we get to marijuana? Oh, what am I doing?
Yeah, what are you up to?
What am I doing? What am I up to? So there's that issue about weed. And it's interesting how some of this work takes you into a discussion and a debate around, the ethical, moral.
Yeah.
Which is interesting as an actor.
Definitely.
To go there and think about all those kinds of dimensions. But I also just finished a black and white movie.
Oh, really?
It was a student film, this one.
Okay.
And they used equipment from the 40s.
Really?
And real film.
Wow.
To do it. Very unique. And again, I'm always talented when I see the young people coming up through the ranks of a film school, and think about my own experience as someone who wanted to be an actor. Back then, there was no such thing going on in Ontario.
Yeah. No.
There was no door that you could open and walk through and do that.
Yeah, the building was barely built.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I look at these young people doing these very creative things, and I am so hopeful.
Yeah.
The world is changing.
Yeah.
You know, every crew I've been on is diverse. They're multiracial. Every crew member has something to bring to this project that makes it vibrant and makes it work. And for me, as an older actor, I find that very exciting to be a part of that. Some people say, oh, Anne, you shouldn't be doing student films anymore. You've done enough of that. Baloney. You can get some juice from this, big time.
Definitely.
And so when I was a part of that, I was just totally impressed with what these people are bringing to the film industry in Ontario.
Yeah.
And the future of film in Canada is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Because of that creativity now those are people who will have lots to say about the creative process.
Yeah.
As time goes by.
I've been talking, the gentleman that you saw leaving, he's a full film photographer. He only uses film. He only uses 35 millimeter and
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, and he wants to be in the dark room, like doing it himself, and I'm like, and the girl I talked to the day before was into the same kind of thing, like going back to that vintage analog type of stuff. And,
interesting.
It's really, and then also you say that, and they did a movie like that.
They did.
Pretty interesting.
Short film. Wasn't full length movie. It was short film, but nevertheless.
Of course.
That's awesome for these kids to have that experience in
love
creating
to see that.
something from the 40s.
Yeah.
You know, a 40s style movie.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
Was it set in that time?
Part of it is.
Okay.
I play the later version of the young lady from the 40s.
Okay.
I play the older version. And so we kind of reenact some of the scenes after 30 years have gone by.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So that was cool. And in my spare time, I do things like take courses at Second City, work with my acting coach, do some work on branding, and then, always watching to see where the next opportunity might come, what the leftovers are on Casting Workbook and Actors Access that I might apply to.
Yeah.
And because I have friends overseas who are also in the acting business, some of them have moved from acting into directing and producing.
Okay.
Some opportunities are kind of cooking there as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And you just never know. There's always that element of surprise, right?
Yeah, that's the best part.
I was never one of those people who planned her career, ever.
Yeah?
No.
Well, yeah.
I'm probably bad for parents who want their kids to plan their careers. They don't want to hear this, so...
You're like the opposite.
I didn't do that because I was diverted.
Yeah.
I thought I will do this to please my parents, not to please myself. And I grew up in a time when girls did that.
Yeah.
Please your parents, be submissive, be acquiescent, passive, don't really say what you want.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and I didn't want to hurt my parents' feelings either,
They want what's best.
Yes, respect them. Although I did have feelings of disappointment, and though I was angry, yes, of course, I was diverted from what I really wanted to do. It's a good thing that I was diverted. I see that.
Really?
Because I had this whole other life, and now I can come to it looking at it from a different point of view, and my whole life doesn't depend on it.
Yeah.
And there are aspects of the business that are probably healthy and wonderful, and there's, like anything else, there are aspects of it that have a dark side as well.
Of course.
And so, I'm fortunate enough not to have to live that out as a young person. And because I'm the kind of person who never really planned out her life in any career.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I did not plan out my career where it took me. Opportunities came knocking. Someone said, "Oh, Anne, you should really become a diagnostician because you seem to have some ability with kids who can't learn to read. You know, you should really." Oh, well, okay. Take this course, take that course, become qualified, start doing it. And I'd become very excited about it. And then someone else says, "You know, we're planning Bill 82 in this province. You know a lot about these kids. You should work for the Ministry of Education because they're just working out what that might look like." Well, what do you have to do with that? Oh, you should take this, this, and this, do that. Do that, go for the interview, I get the job, you know, and it was sort of, that's how it happened. It's not that I had this plan that said Anne will eventually become an international school inspector and train people in private schools how to design their curriculum so they can offer an Ontario secondary school diploma.
Yeah.
That was never in my planning book.
Wow.
But that's how it happened, and that's how I ended up in all of those different places. And I think in some ways, I was just sort of living my life out as an actor in education.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because that is the life of an actor.
Yeah,
Is you can really never anticipate where this is going to take you.
Yeah.
Or where you're going to end up with it. So I always want to, I'm a yoga, mindfulness, meditation teacher. That's part of, I did the whole India thing at one time.
Oh, yeah?
Which is a whole other hour. We won't go there.
Jeez.
But the mindfulness thing is probably a trend, a movement, a way of being that is terrific for actors to cultivate. Because although we say get out of your head and we call it mindful meditation,
Yeah.
the mindful meditation allows you to accept whatever is scrolling through the mind, but not allow it to distract you from being in the moment, from being present, from breathing, smelling, taking in through all of your senses what's happening in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
That is acting.
Yeah.
That is
Definitely.
being the character. That is bringing truth to the moment. And if you can train yourself to be mindful of the moment, not in your head,
Yes.
but mindful of the moment, it makes, in my view, for a really good channeling of the character.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that, and again, those things just happened. It's not that I planned that.
Yeah.
So there's something about my life that for me is different.
Has always been instinctual, kind of.
Yeah.
Seems like.
Yeah. Well, I'm a March 3rd baby. Some people say it has to do with your zodiac.
Yeah.
If you believe in
March
that
3rd.
stuff. Yeah. Pisces.
Pisces is March 3rd?
Yeah.
And then Pisces is next to Aries?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I'm Aries.
Are you Aries?
Yeah.
My mother's Aries. She's Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
What do you mean Valentine's Day?
February 14th.
Aries is April.
Oh, you're Aries, right.
Yeah.
My mother's Aquarius, sorry.
Oh.
Aquarius. I thought you said Aquarius.
No.
Aries. You're right after March?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know too much about Aries, but I think I know more about them now.
They're just fiery and strong-willed and charismatic.
Determined.
Handsome,
Oh, definitely.
usually.
Yeah, very. I can attest to that.
Thank you. So I guess we won't touch on India. Oh, that's so in my head. We'll talk about it after, I guess.
It's another journey, another chapter.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Can I at least just ask, was that planned at all?
No.
Or that just happened to?
Well, I did the yoga training and meditation training for a year in Hamilton
Okay.
through the Lock Street Meditation Center, Yoga Center there on Lock Street.
okay.
I can't recall the name of it now. And